what you can't explain. It's coming back again. I can see it now, I can see it now. What you can't explain, coming back again.
Hello everybody, welcome back to my channel, and thank you for joining me for another coffee and crime time. And this case has been in the headlines quite a bit recently. It's incredibly disturbing for me, and we're going to talk about it. So in March of 2025, Christina Formella, a 30-year-old teacher at Downers Grove South High School in Illinois, was arrested and charged with multiple counts of aggravated criminal sexual abuse and criminal sexual assault involving a 15-year-old student. She was a special education teacher, a trusted soccer coach, and a newlywed who had recently returned from a picture-perfect wedding in Italy. But behind the carefully curated social media posts and classroom smiles, police say that Christina Formella was hiding something darker, something criminal. So on a quiet morning in March of 2025, Christina was pulled over by Downers Grove detectives and arrested on charges that stunned an entire community. The 30-year-old teacher is accused of grooming and sexually assaulting her 15-year-old student, a child she once claimed to be trying to help. And prosecutors say their relationship began with tutoring and coaching and escalated into a classroom encounter one morning before school. There's also a string of salacious text messages. There's some very odd notes app entries. But Christina Formella insists that she is the real victim. She claims she was blackmailed, manipulated, and targeted because she was too good looking. It's true. She's just so good looking. Everybody wants her, and she just can't help it. So today we're digging into the twisted case of Christina Formella, a woman who says she was stalked, but she left behind a digital trail that tells a very different story. Now, before we dive in, let's have a word from the sponsor of today's video, Incogni. Today's video is sponsored by Incogni, and if you care about privacy as much as I do, especially when you're researching dark corners of the internet or sharing your story online, you need to hear this. There are thousands of companies collecting and selling your personal data right now, and I'm talking everything: names, emails, home addresses, even info on your relatives and shopping habits, and you've probably never consented to it. Why would you? A long while back, years ago, I signed up for a free newsletter and started getting spammed non-stop by companies I'd never heard of. And after researching a sensitive case for an episode, I suddenly saw targeted ads for products and services related to what I just Googled. And I do true crime, so I don't really want products and services related to what I'm Googling. It really felt invasive and honestly a little bit scary, and that's when I started using Incogni. Incogni is a service that automatically contacts data brokers on your behalf and demands that they delete your personal information, and it actually works. I signed up, I told them whose data to remove, mine, obviously. I gave them permission to work on my behalf, and that's it. And Incogni has this dashboard that's super intuitive, easy to use, easy to decipher. It's not complicated at all. And I love to check my dashboard like every other day to see what Incogni is doing for me. And within days of me signing up, they had already reached out to dozens of companies. Some of these companies had entire profiles on me I didn't even know existed. It's absolutely crazy. So if you want to take control of your privacy again, go to incogni.com/stephanieharlowe and use code stephanieharlowe to get 60% off an annual Incogni plan. And this is a really good deal, over half off an annual Incogni plan. And Incogni is such a valuable asset to have. This is a good deal to take advantage of. And once again, that's incogni.com/stephanieharlowe. And the code is stephanieharlowe. There's an E on the end of Stephanie and Harlowe. Check them out. Your personal data shouldn't be public property. Take it off the market with Incogni. Thank you so much to Incogni for sponsoring today's video, and let's dive in. Now, as a quick precursor before we get started, Christina Formella Formella has simply been arrested and charged at this point. She has not been found guilty of anything, and in fact, she is saying she is not guilty of anything. There's two sides to every story, etc., etc. I personally think the evidence tells a pretty clear story of what happened here. I have my own opinions on exactly what happened here, but everyone is innocent until proven guilty in a court of law, and Christina Formella will have her day in court. And what's odd about this whole case, what's odd about this whole scenario, is at face value, the allegations against Christina Formella don't make a lot of sense, because from the outside, she truly appeared to have it all, right? She was young, attractive, and educated, with a stable career as a special education teacher and a soccer coach, and just 6 months before her arrest, Christina had married her college sweetheart, Michael Formella, who had played baseball at their alma mater, Concordia State University in Chicago. Now, in the past month or so, Christina herself has done a pretty thorough job of wiping any trace of herself off the internet. Social media, everything's been deleted. But for a while, she forgot about her wedding website, which of course TikTokers got a hold of. And then within days of the wedding website being put out on TikTok, that was also gone. But we do luckily have some evidence of this website because she forgot to take it down and some people saw it. So on the wedding website, we find out that, quote, while Christina and Mike officially met in August of 2016, their story actually dates back to December of 2014. Mike and some of his baseball teammates were headed over to the gym to watch a home baseball game at Concordia University, Chicago, where Christina and Mike both went to college. When entering the gym and looking into the stands, instead of an open seat, it was Christina that caught Mike's eye. Shortly after, Mike turned to his friends and said, "I'm going to marry that girl one day." Fast forward 2 years later, Mike and Christina officially meet at one of the many famous Concordia baseball house parties. With the help of some mutual friends, the two found each other during a drinking game and haven't gone a day without each other since. End quote. Now, during college, Christina played defense on the school's soccer team, the Cougars, winning Athlete of the Week in November of 2016. So clearly, she's pretty good at soccer, she's talented, she's an athlete. And on June 22nd, 2024, Christina and her fiancé Mike tied the knot in the Amalfi Coast in Italy. And a month later, on July 20th, the couple had a second wedding reception back home in Illinois. That video came from TikTok user True Crime with M, so shout out to her. Once again, all of these things have been wiped off the internet, so really big props to the social media content creators who were able to get a hold of this stuff before it disappeared. So what I'm trying to say here is, of course, bad people don't look bad always on the outside, right? Sometimes they're attractive, sometimes they're successful, but Christina Formella, like I said, truly seemed to have it all. She's got her fiancé Mike, who's her college sweetheart. They're both athletes. He's handsome. He seems to be, at least according to all of their pictures, just absolutely obsessed and in love with her. She's very attractive as well. She's beautiful. She's got a good job where she's respected. She's pretty young, so to have all of these things in her life kind of fall into place and have life sort of working out in the way that many believe it's supposed to, you would want to ask yourself, why would this woman blow up her entire life? And like I said, I have a theory. We're going to talk about that. But Christina Formella began working as a special education teacher at Downers Grove South High School. Downers Grove is a picturesque village located in DuPage County. It's approximately 22 miles west of downtown Chicago, and it seems like a really nice place to live. Once again, not someplace where you would think something like this would happen. 25% of its residents hold master's degrees, 34% of them possess a bachelor's degree. Median household income is around $97,000, which does reflect that area's economic stability. And then in 2021, Christina began volunteering as the school soccer coach for both the boys and the girls teams. She seems to have gotten a permanent place there at some point that year. And this is where it seems she met the male student she would soon be accused of assaulting. On March 16th, 2025, Downers Grove detectives conducted a traffic stop during which they took a 30-year-old Christina Formella into custody and charged her with the sexual abuse of a 15-year-old student. And at that time, she was in the car with her husband. And honestly, she really appeared to have no idea of why she was being approached by law enforcement.
Hey, how you doing? Hi. Officer Guzman with Downers Grove. Do you have your license on you?
Right.
Yeah, I'm gonna explain. I'm sure you're confused. I'll explain everything to you. Double door. You're Christina?
Yes.
Okay, Christina, do me a favor. Can you step out of the car for me? I know you're confused. I'll explain everything to you. You don't have anything on you? You can just grab whatever you need.
Whatever I need.
Yeah, whatever you need. Like your phone, your purse, go ahead and grab it.
Is she going somewhere? Or?
Yeah, we're gonna explain everything to you guys. Go ahead and grab it. We're not going anywhere right now.
All right.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
I don't understand what's going on here.
I get it, yeah. You can go grab your things.
Can he come with me?
Yes. You stay there right for right now, sir. Just stay there, but yes, you can. But come on back here.
Can I shut the car off?
Oh, yeah. Go ahead. Goes off. Okay. It's right back over here.
As you can tell, Christina's husband, Mike, is also confused, and why wouldn't he be? Up until that point, he had no idea that his wife had been living something of a double life.
We do have an investigation going on. We have to talk to you about it at the police department, okay? So we're going to explain everything to you there. It's not my investigation. I don't know the full details. We do have to bring you there, though, okay? So I do have to put you in handcuffs and bring you to the police department. Just a Downers Grove. Yes, unfortunately, yes.
I'm willing to go with you.
I get it, yeah. Unfortunately, we have to do it that way. So do me a favor, we just take this off.
Can I ask you
Of course, yeah. It's not, like I said, it's not my investigation. Obviously, we're here for a reason. So go ahead and turn around for me. So right now, you're being detained, and there is a detective that needs to talk to you at the police department. No, he can just come to the police department as well if he wants to wait for you there.
I'm
I get it. You have a lot of questions.
so scared.
Yeah, everything's okay. We just need to talk to you at the police department. That's all. Nothing else on your pocket right now? Anything else?
My phone.
Just your phone?
Here.
Okay. Okay. I'm sitting back in this car on the other side. Once you get to the police department, you'll talk to the detective and he'll explain everything to you.
But you can't even give me an idea
At the moment,
what this is about.
other than that it's an investigation, that's all I can really tell you right now. I'm sorry. I wish I could tell you more.
So Christina is put into the back of the squad car. She's obviously distressed. She keeps asking if the police can give her any information, and she also wants to make it clear that she really wants and needs her husband with her. Now, at this point, the police officers are being patient, although they're not giving her any new information, which is very much frustrating her, and she becomes especially sassy when she says she wants her husband, and the police officer responds, "Of course," but then doesn't say anything afterwards. And you can kind of see she's got one of this eye rolling things, kind of one of these almost childlike or childish, are you going to answer me? Are you going to give me what I want? I'm entitled to this. I told you I want something and I'm not immediately getting it. What's happening here? So this is clearly a woman who, in my opinion, is used to getting what she wants and is not super accustomed to hearing the word no.
Excuse me, is my husband coming with?
Yeah. He's taking his phone number down. We're staying in touch with him. We're just going to Downers Grove, so 10 minutes away.
No, I know, but I really would prefer that my husband's with me.
Of course.
Am I in trouble? I'm so lost right now.
I'm sure you are. Like I said, I can't really talk to right now. I'll just tell you that right now you're being detained for an investigation and we're bringing you into the police department. And once you get there, they're going to fill you in on everything.
Now, according to the police, by the time of Christina's arrest, it had been a year since she'd last had contact with her victim. So I honestly do think by this point, she believed she'd gotten away with everything. and then nothing was going to come back and bite her in the ass. And she was genuinely feeling in the dark about why she was being hauled into the police station. It had been so long. If stuff wasn't going to come out by then, it probably never would. Now, the fact is, this arrest was prompted not by the student, but by the student's mother seeing messages to her son from Christina on his phone. Now, apparently, the day before Christina's arrest, which would have been the 15th, the mother was setting up a new phone for her son. His old phone had broken, and she got him a new phone, and she was getting it all set up. And when she put in the iCloud information, all the messages started coming back. And obviously, by this point, we don't know all of the messages. We don't know everything that was said between Christina and this student. I'm sure there's a lot more. There are court documents. I don't have access to them. It seems some news outlets had access to them and have given us kind of brief synopsis of what it was in these documents, what was in these arrest reports and affidavits and things, but we don't have access to them. And it seems like because of the age of the student, a lot of what is going to happen in this trial is probably going to be kept private. I know that the family of the student does not want cameras in the courtroom. They don't want this to be a public spectacle. But from what we can tell, from what we do know, Christina had texted the student. Well, actually, first, the student texted Christina and said, "I love you, Mama." And then Christina wrote back and said, quote, "I love you so much, baby. Even though this morning was short, it was perfect," end quote. The student replied back saying, quote, "I know, baby. It was perfect, so perfect," end quote. Christina then texted, quote, "I love having sex with you," end quote. She texted this to the 15-year-old student, to which the student replied, quote, "I know, baby. I love it so much. It feels so good. It's so passionate. It's so intimate. It's perfect," end quote. Okay, so obviously, to see these messages would have been quite a shock to the mother of a 15-year-old boy. And so the mother confronted her son with what she had found on his phone, and this led him to confess to the relationship with the much older teacher, which he claimed by that point had ended. And from all the evidence, we can, kind of be assured that it had ended by then, even though it doesn't seem like Christina Formella really wanted it to, which we're going to talk about. Now, according to the police, Christina Formella had been the boys' soccer coach, and at some point in late 2023, she began tutoring him privately after he broke his collarbone. At that point, Christina began sending the boy flirtatious messages using a school messaging platform. So this all starts on a school messaging platform. So we're definitely going to have access to those messages, right? Depending on how long the school keeps them. But because it is a public school messaging platform, I believe that certain school administrators would have access to retrieve those messages. And then, after they'd messaged on that school platform for a while, Christina gave the 15-year-old student her cell phone number so that they could play a game together. This game ended up being like 8-ball pool. I think it's like those iPhone games that people play. I think it was just an excuse to get him to have her number so that they could chat more privately, because that is when the more salacious text messages began. The pair began to message each other consistently. They also appeared to have shared one FaceTime conversation that took place when Christina was out of town, and this all culminated in a sexual encounter in December of 2023 before school began in a classroom. According to documents from the Downers Grove Police Department, the two entered the classroom. Formella closed the door behind them. She removed the student's clothing. They both removed her leggings, and at this point, they had sex. That is the allegation. Now, at this time, the student was 15 and Christina was 28. Afterwards, they both discussed how they'd been wrong for doing what they had done, and eventually all communication between them stopped after February of 2024. Now, during her police interview, Christina denied that anything sexual had happened, and she said she was being framed and blackmailed by the student. Police documents state, quote, Formella said everybody comes after her because she is good looking, and she is just a good person who cared too much about the boy. She claimed that one day the boy had grabbed her phone unattended, had entered her passcode, had sent the messages to his phone, had then deleted the messages from her phone, and had it saved to his phone as blackmail, end quote. Yeah, I'm going to talk about what I think about that in a second, but I first want to show you a clip of Christina Formella after her interview with police, once she realized why she was being hauled into the police station, once she realized what she was being charged with.
I was gonna put your seatbelt on. Must have you able to reach it down there? Alright. Sure you don't want a tissue or something?
I feel like I'm gonna throw up.
Bag?
Yes, please.
Alright. Shauna, can you grab which bag out of there?
Honestly, as far as forever, no complaints behind us.
Hey, can you get like a bag just in case she gets nauseous? Yeah. I don't know, do we have any of those emesis bags like laying around? That's fine. I figured she was something better than nothing. Or here, can you stay with her? I'll go grab it. Yeah.
Oh my god. What the fuck? No.
Gonna put it on the floor here, all right?
Okay.
You paper towels on the floor here if you need it, all right?
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm good. Yeah. Yep. Man.
In my opinion, these are the cries of someone who has just realized they've thrown their entire life away for nothing. And you might be feeling badly for her because she is very clearly distraught. But wait until you hear what investigators found on her phone. First, I also want to mention that the police documents state that throughout her interview, Formella attempted to paint the teenage boy as a stalker, and she claimed that her husband Michael was aware of what had been happening. So basically, from what I can tell, Christina Formella is like, this kid was obsessed with me, he's trying to set me up, he's trying to blackmail me, at the same time he's stalking me, he won't leave me alone, and she kind of told the police that this had been an open topic of conversation in her household with her husband. She's going home at night and she's like, oh, this kid is stalking me and he's, obsessed with me and he clearly is in love with me. He's got a little childhood crush, but it's a little concerning and he won't leave me alone, et cetera, et cetera. Now, in the police documents, it says, quote, oddly enough, her husband told detectives that he knows nothing about the accuser beyond his status as a soccer player, end quote. So no, that wasn't happening, right? Not only did Christina Formella not inform school authorities or this boy's parents about his stalking behavior, she did not go home and tell her husband, and I just genuinely believe that if she had been being stalked by this kid and if he was obsessed with her and wouldn't leave her alone and she felt nervous or scared about it, that she would have said something to someone, and she told the police that she said something to her husband, right? Because that's what a normal person would do. But no, No, she does not appear to have shared any of this with her husband. And not only did Christina Formella have shirtless pictures of the teenage boy on her phone, which were taken from his social media, but there were text messages with others, so between Christina Formella and other people, during which she would spontaneously bring up his name. Why is this important? Why was it important enough to include in the police report? It shows a pattern of behavior. And the idea is that someone who is cheating habitually, like in some sort of affair, especially if it has an emotional tinge to it, they are going to talk frequently about the person they're cheating with, to their family, to their friends, even to their partner, their current partner, right? So this idea kind of comes from psychological principles that are related to guilt management, emotional displacement, covert behavior, trying to like cover up what you're doing. Talking about the person that they're cheating with can be a subconscious way of relieving guilt. So like by bringing that person into everyday casual conversation in a casual, harmless way, the cheating partner may feel like they're being more honest or less deceitful, even if they are omitting the full truth, And I don't know anything about the way Christina referred to the student in text messages with others, but I guarantee you she wasn't talking to her friends and family and her partner about the relationship she had with him. She was most likely talking about him in a casual and conversational way, bringing him up like, oh, this kid, he's really smart. Like, I'm just trying to help him. He's had some challenges in life, but I'm really trying to get him through it. And he's really funny. And like, I really think that he has a bright future. Those kinds of things. And she's going to talk about him with others because she wants to, right? And some people also use this tactic to deflect suspicion. If they're openly talking about that person, they assume it'll seem less likely that they're hiding anything. Like, why would I be talking about this person all the time if there was something going on with them, et cetera, et cetera. Additionally, if the relationship was seen by Christina as having some emotional depth, which I think it's clear she did view it that way, she may have genuinely had this 15-year-old student on her mind a lot. And when I say she may have had him on her mind a lot, there is evidence that she did, that she was very much obsessed with him, right? And so mentioning him in conversation with others would have been a way for her to release or process those feelings without openly admitting what was happening. And when I say that it's clear Christina felt there was an emotional aspect to this relationship, it's not just because of the I love yous exchanged, but because of what police found in Christina's notes app. So these are not messages directly to anyone. They seem more like diary entries, but the details that she gives in these notes app entries are pretty revealing when it comes to who she's talking about and what she feels. So the Notes app entry says, quote, I, once again, from day effing one, called your next girlfriend. What she's saying is she didn't call the girlfriend or the next girlfriend on the phone. She called who it would be, right? Christina Formella predicted who this 15-year-old's next girlfriend would be. We're going to talk about that in a second. We're going to unpack that in a second. So she continues on in the Notes app entry saying, quote, you're so effing predictable and disgusting. Shocker, you cheated on me with her. All I was to you was somebody to fuck. I'm not even upset. I'm not mad. I'm not any of that. I've just lost interest. I went back and screenshotted every single time that I said we should break up until after the wedding and after you graduated. And every single effing time you came back and convinced me it would be fine. I initiated every single breakup only for you to end things, saying you couldn't get over it. You ruined us. I warned you we should never have started dating a long, long, long effing time ago, and you gaslit me and convinced me it was fine because that's who you are. We will never be together again. I'm not a second choice. I'm the best thing you'll ever have, even with all my mistakes. You, once again, waited and strung me along until it was convenient for you. It broke me last time. This time, it changed me. I'm not sad. I'm effing mad I let a 16-year-old F with me like that, and I made a promise to myself that I will never let any guy F with me like that again, ever. In the end, we both lost. You lost the girl who would have stuck with you through thick and thin, who would have changed anything about herself to make you happy. And I lost the person I was before I met you. End quote. Okay. Like I said, there's a lot to unpack here, but we can't do that right now because we aren't done. There's another section in the Notes app titled Manifestations. And clearly, Christina Formella wrote down some manifestations that she really wanted to come to pass. So the Notes app refers specifically to the student's name, but it's redacted. So when I read this and his name is used, I'm going to say blank. So the entry said, quote, "Blank is going to reach out to me soon and try to fix things between us. In the meantime, I'm going to live my best life knowing he's not the person I thought he was and that he is beneath me." End quote. So we were not given a date for that specific manifestation, but there was another one dated November 11th, 2024, that read, quote, "Blank and I will connect again soon in a positive way. We will both get the closure we need in order to move on in a healthy way. We will be able to be a part of each other's lives forever. We will be in each other's lives forever. We will be able to love each other while also living our own lives." End quote. So it's pretty clear to me who in this situation was obsessed and kind of a stalker, and it wasn't the 15-year-old kid. First, let's talk about her claims that this 15-year-old is setting her up because he took her phone when it was unattended and used her passcode to unlock it, and then had these conversations with himself and then deleted them off her phone and then left them on his phone so that he could blackmail her. Now, this would all take quite a bit of time to accomplish, number one. So how long was Christina with this student when she was tutoring him before classes? Probably just an hour or so. And at what point was she leaving him alone with her unattended cell phone for long enough for him to be able to do this? And on top of that, how the hell did he know her passcode to her phone? This is all things that she's going to have to explain. Now, additionally, in these Notes app entries, there are very clear indications that Christina is like obsessed, absolutely obsessed. And when I say that she's kind of the one stalking here, the fact that she says, "I called your next girlfriend," as in like I called who it was going to be, that's because in my opinion, every day Christina Formella is going into school, every day the 15-year-old's going into school, Monday through Friday, and they're not openly addressing, obviously, what's happening between them, but there's this, like, tension. Well, they'll see each other in the halls, and, she's probably, like, knows where his classes are, or knows where his locker is, and she's kind of walking by or making her presence known to see who he's talking to, who he's hanging out with, is somebody flirting with him, et cetera, et cetera. So that's why she's saying, "I called who your next girlfriend was," like who your next girlfriend was going to be, because she's been watching him to see who he's interacting with. And I don't know for sure, but I guarantee you, in my opinion, that this new girlfriend is probably also a high school student, probably also age appropriate, and probably incredibly threatening to Christina Formella. And all of this kind of language that Christina is using just reminds me of relationship TikTok videos and like self-help books, kind of, the whole manifestation thing and saying like, "Oh, I'm going to live my best life. And when he comes back, I'm going to know that he was beneath me the whole." What do you mean he was beneath you the whole? He's 15 years old. You're almost 30. He's a child. You're an adult. So manifestations in general are intentional expressions of desired outcomes. And the purpose, I guess, is to align your mindset, energy, and behavior with the things you want, whether it's love, success, healing, closure, or personal growth. But here's the catch, and here's something I don't think some people understand. Manifestation alone does not make things happen. It's not like a magic thing. It can influence mindset and behavior, which in turn may lead to different outcomes. But it's not, this quick spell you can cast to make your life perfect. In certain contexts, like in my opinion, Christina's kind of situation here, manifestations can be used to avoid reality. It can be used to feed delusions or maintain emotional attachment in situations where boundaries are no longer working. It is my personal belief that this woman, Christina Formella, is not emotionally well, and that she was probably going through a lot of stuff, whatever it is, I don't know, And I 100% believe that Christina was experiencing limerence with this student, which led her to obsess, fantasize, and ultimately behave in ways that would burn her entire life to the ground. And this is common in limerence, right? Limerence is a psychological state of intense, obsessive, romantic infatuation for another person, and it's characterized by intrusive thoughts, emotional dependence, idealization, and a desperate need for reciprocation. And usually, a person who is in limerence with somebody, they're in limerence with someone who's really not returning their affections, at least not to the degree that the person in limerence wants them to. It's not just a crush or even love. Limerence is a kind of emotional high that borders on addiction. Several aspects of what Christina wrote to and about this student align with classic limerence symptoms. The long, emotionally charged messages she wrote after the alleged relationship ended, which suggest a lingering emotional fixation, right? She's the relationship's ended, but she's like still thinking about it. She's, angry. She's kind of like, I'm not mad, I'm just hurt, I'm crushed by this. This absolutely changed me. Even after the relationship with a 15-year-old child has ended. And Christina's manifestation entries talk about the student reaching back out, them reconnecting and being in each other's lives forever while still living their own lives, which obviously reflects a very severe detachment from reality and an idealization of the connection they had. Also, Christina's sort of chaotic emotions, swinging from devotion to resentment, is very common in limerence when the fantasy of love collides with rejection or boundaries. People experiencing limerence have lost jobs, marriages, custody of their children. They've destroyed their lives and their reputations because of their inability to let go of the fantasy. Limerence clouds judgment. The fantasy becomes more important and more real than facts. A limerent person might justify their immoral, or in Christina's situation, illegal behavior, telling themselves that what they are feeling is real love, even in the face of overwhelming evidence to the contrary. And in limerence, rejection or distance doesn't end those feelings. It often intensifies them. And if you look on the internet, there are videos, entire websites devoted to healing from limerence, and there are plenty of firsthand testimonials about how limerence feels and what it's like to be in the throes of it and how it has destroyed lives. And a lot of limerent people will find themselves going from one limerent relationship to another. They usually don't just experience it once. And so one Reddit user talked about this and posted, quote, "Overall, I'd say that limerence is an extremely destructive influence in both my work and personal lives. I put all my attention into my limerent object and lose perspective as to what's important, and it takes away from my will to work or to follow my interests. My marriage hasn't been in a good place for years for unrelated reasons, so I'm extremely susceptible to attention from women I find attractive and interesting. If my current limerent object had asked for it years ago, I would have left my wife and family and made her the center of my world more so than she was. Thankfully, I learned how badly that would have worked out, and she didn't want that from me." End quote. So this man clearly is delusional still, because he's like, my limerent relationship has distracted me from my personal life, from my work life, and my marriage hasn't been good in years for unrelated reasons. Yeah, it's not because you're like carrying a torch and an obsession for another woman that your marriage hasn't been good in years. It's not that. That has nothing to do with it. And then he literally follows that by saying, I would have left my wife and family years ago if my limerent object would have allowed that, if that's what she wanted, but she doesn't want that from me. So do you see how this is very much a condition of delusion and fantasy? He logically and intelligently knows that his limerent object doesn't want anything serious from him, that she doesn't return his intense feelings, but it's not stopping him from continuing to allow his limerent object to completely derail him from every aspect of life. He's going to sort of, make justifications as to why it's okay to continue chasing his limerent object, because of the chemical reaction he's getting in his brain, right? The dopamine. They sort of compare it to an addiction. And it's kind of better when the limerent object doesn't want you because it creates this push-pull dynamic that's very addictive. Another Reddit user said, quote, "My limerence is screwing up my life, honestly. It makes it hard for me to be present with my partner in our relationship, and it distracts me from work and hobbies. My real life feels gray and empty compared to the tragic fantasy of lost love," end quote. And that's another aspect of it, right? Almost like chasing this thing that you know you can never get, and it creates this fantastical kind of experience of just constantly being like heartbroken and longing for something. I don't know why people want to feel that way, but apparently they do. Another described the feeling of limerence saying, quote, "It feels like a burning unfulfilled need," end quote. Sounds lovely. And someone else responded to this comment and said, quote, "In the beginning, it was giving me so much happiness, and I was actually quite convinced that if I manifest strongly enough, it could happen. Then something happened and I was doused with ice cold reality last week. I feel so stupid now because I was so convinced," end quote. And yet another said, quote, "Panic, excitement, and panic, like I'd been rubbing two sticks together for hours trying to start a fire and finally got a spark and smoke and the tiniest flame, and I desperately don't want this tiny flame to extinguish," end quote. So limerence isn't love. It's impossible love. It's a psychological experience that can hijack judgment and distort reality. The object of someone's limerence is usually unattainable, unavailable, or outright impossible to be with. And this unattainability actually intensifies the limerence. The more unavailable the other person is, the more room there is to fantasize, and the more emotionally intoxicating the obsession becomes. But if the fantasy were ever to become reality, the intense feelings would usually fade because limerence isn't about who the person is, it's about who they represent to the limerent mind. So honestly, The Great Gatsby is one of literature's most iconic portrayals of limerence, in my opinion, even though the term wasn't coined until decades after F. Scott Fitzgerald wrote the novel. So when viewed through this lens, Jay Gatsby, our protagonist, he isn't a romantic idealist. He's someone trapped in a fantasy so powerful it destroys him. Gatsby doesn't love Daisy, the woman. He loves the idea of Daisy. The real Daisy, as we know, she kind of sucks, right? She's shallow, indecisive, and she's somewhat selfish. She's a somewhat selfish woman who chooses security over passion. But to Gatsby, for his entire life, basically, Daisy's perfection. She represents lost time, purity, status, and a future that I think he hopes will redeem his past. Fitzgerald writes, quote, "There must have been moments, even that afternoon, when Daisy tumbled short of his dreams, not through her own fault, but because of the colossal vitality of his illusion," end quote. So this line from the novel, The Great Gatsby, could describe limerence itself, and does, basically. Gatsby projected a fantasy so colossal that Daisy could never live up to it. Limerence thrives on the hope that one day the limerent object will finally return the obsession, right? We see this sort of reflected in Christina Formella's Notes app. Gatsby spent years building his wealth solely to impress Daisy, and oftentimes doing some dangerous and illegal things to get there. And he created a persona that he believed was worthy of who he had made Daisy to be. He threw extravagant parties, hoping she would stroll in one night. He watched the green light at the end of her dock like it was a beacon guiding him home. Watching that light made Gatsby feel connected to Daisy, even though she wasn't ever even thinking about him. But to him, it was kind of a relationship with himself, and then this other part of himself that was a projection of what he wanted Daisy to be. He's in like a relationship with himself. He was emotionally enslaved by his longing for Daisy, and when she ultimately failed to live up to his expectations and chose her old life, Jay Gatsby was shattered. He literally had no identity outside of the fantasy he had spent so long building. The Great Gatsby actually captures something deeply human, the way longing can become a substitute for love, and how the pursuit of an ideal rather than a reality can lead to emotional ruin. The story is not romantic at all, if you think about it. It's a cautionary tale about what happens when we fall in love with our own projections. And I think it's very, very common, especially lately, in this time when we're all so very disconnected from each other. And I think it's fairly obvious that the depth of emotion Christina Formella was wanting to see in this 15-year-old student was just not a possibility. And being a special education teacher who most likely had to take more than one child development class, she should have logically known this. But logic was not the driving force behind her decision in this case. Because, in my opinion, once again, allegedly, don't come for me, Christina Formella is not mentally well. She is in the throes of limerence. She's got attachment issues. She's action-packed with issues at this point. I'm not a psychiatrist, so I am not in any place to diagnose her, but that's just my opinion. She would have known, or should have known, that the 15-year-old boy was not able to provide her with what she was providing him, that he couldn't return her affection and her intensity and her passion in the way that she was giving it to him. Once again, a trademark or a hallmark of a limerent relationship. In my opinion, if she was struggling with limerence, which is just my theory, she chose this 15-year-old boy specifically because he would never be able to meet her impossibly high standards, especially impossibly high standards for this 15-year-old, because the part of the brain responsible for reasoning and impulse control and long-term planning, that's the prefrontal cortex, which is still heavily under construction in a human until they're well into their 20s. In a 15-year-old, it's kind of like they've got this huge fire burning, but they have no way of putting the fire out. Emotional intensity is very high. Impulse control is very low. And the ability to assess risk versus reward is very immature. A 15-year-old can and may feel strong emotions like infatuation and longing, but they lack the neurological structure to process romantic love with adult-level maturity, responsibility, or self-awareness. And here's where it gets even more tricky, because when a teen is in a relationship like this with an adult, the relationship is obviously inherently imbalanced. The adult, especially if that adult is a teacher or a coach or someone in a trusted position, which she was all three, that adult holds all the power, influence, and control, while the teen is still very much in a stage of seeking approval and forming their identity. And this makes any consent or emotional reciprocation compromised, because the teen might go along with something out of confusion, admiration, fear, curiosity, or the need to please, but they don't understand exactly what is happening. They don't understand the context or the gray areas of what's going on. They don't really understand what the adult expects from them. They're not capable of understanding that. Obviously, as adults, we know romantic love, real love, requires more than emotion. It needs boundaries, empathy, a sense of self strong enough to handle rejection. And as adults, we understand that romantic love, real love, requires more than emotion. It needs boundaries, empathy, a sense of self strong enough to handle rejection, conflict, change, all the phases that a person will go through in life. And it also needs the ability to see and support another person beyond one's own needs, right? Like a teenager would have to be selfless in order to experience and give true unconditional love. And obviously, 15-year-olds are selfish. They should be. That's the time to be selfish. You haven't developed that very selfless part of you yet. You haven't really come to understand what sacrifice for another person looks like, and you shouldn't have to because you're a child. That's the time when people do for you, when people sacrifice for you, adults sacrifice for you. Children are supposed to be selfish in these times, and their brains haven't even really developed enough for them to not be selfish. So what teenagers call love is usually infatuation, fantasy, emotional dependency. A 15-year-old can feel intense crushes, romantic longing, emotional attachment, and they can certainly have a desire for closeness, acceptance, and even sex, but these are only obviously appropriate within their own peer group. They're still rehearsing and experimenting with romantic roles. They're not ready for adult entanglements, especially when those entanglements are involving power, sex, or emotional manipulation. So I know that there are some people out there right now with this case, mainly men, who are downplaying what happened between Christina Formella and her student. These men and some women are saying that it's different with boys than it is with girls. That this kid wasn't taken advantage of, that he willingly and voluntarily knew what he was doing, and he's going to have a positive experience from this and be getting high fives in the hallway all through high school. But in my opinion, that's a really bad take. A 15-year-old may believe they're actually in love and they may feel it with full sincerity, like to the best of their abilities, but the cognitive, emotional, and ethical framework needed to engage in a mutual, healthy, romantic relationship with an adult simply isn't there. That's why it's never the minor's fault in these situations, and why adults, like Christina Formella, have a legal and moral obligation to set and uphold boundaries, to protect the children. It's a really bad take, and I think that this is happening more and more. There's been a lot of cases coming out in the past few years of adult females sexually assaulting minor males. And it just doesn't get as much empathy. It doesn't get as much attention. It doesn't get taken as seriously. And that's because of what culture has done to young men and what it's taught them, and how society seems to feel and believe and promote that young men should grow up faster than young women, and that they are capable of more mature and complex situations at a younger age than women are. I think this does a lot of harm. I think it infantilizes women, number one, and I think it really downplays how important and valuable a childhood is to a young man, how he needs that, and he needs that to be pure and uninterrupted just as much as a young woman does. Obviously, yeah, I'm sure there were aspects of this relationship that this 15-year-old felt they enjoyed. Christina Formella is an attractive woman. She's young. Yeah, there's going to be high fives, and there's going to be some of his friends and classmates who are like, yeah, good job, dude. But this is going to stay with him. It's going to be traumatic. It's going to follow him, especially as he does get older and recognizes how unprepared he was at his age to handle something like this. You can even tell in the text messages that the student and Christina are exchanging, she's very much introducing him to adult concepts. And she's doing this specifically because she has low self-esteem. That's why she's going after this younger student, because she knows in his eyes, she's going to be this like absolute magnificent goddess. Not only is she attractive and older, but she's going to show him a whole new world in the bedroom, right? And he refers to their sexual encounter as intense, intimate, passionate. These are things that you're not necessarily going to experience in your first sexual encounter with someone your own age. It's going to be kind of clumsy. It's going to be kind of awkward. You're both learning at the same time. When a young man has a sexual encounter with an older woman and she's like pulling out all of these stops to make it as intimate and passionate as possible, Christina Formella, in my opinion, was trying to create a trauma bond with this kid. She was trying to basically make him just irreparably attached to her by like waking up these parts in his brain with this intense, intimate, passionate, actions that he had never experienced before. And by introducing those novel aspects to him, she was gonna, get him for herself. And what Christina Formella did to this student is the definition of grooming. And one of the most disturbing and manipulative aspects of grooming is that it often makes a child or a teen feel as if they're choosing the relationship even when they're not. Groomers often start by positioning themselves as a safe, understanding adult, someone who listens, someone who cares, someone who validates and gets the child in a way that no one else ever has. And over time, this does create a false sense of intimacy that feels like connection. Just like the sexual encounters that are super intimate and super intense are going to create a connection, but it's actually calculated manipulation. This dynamic conditions the child to value the adult's approval and crave their attention, making any shift towards inappropriate behavior feel like a natural progression instead of the violation that it is. Groomers slowly cross emotional and physical boundaries in ways that seem subtle or even flattering to the minor victim. They'll sit a little closer than usual. They'll, send certain messages. Christina Formella started sending messages on the school platform, and then she upped the ante. and was sending them through private text message. So now this kid's got his teacher's private number, and this is going to feel illicit, and it's going to feel very intimate and close. They send private messages and confide in the child or teen about their own personal issues. The adult might tell the minor victim that they're different from others their age and that, they've never felt this way about anyone else before, which romanticizes the abuse and makes the child feel chosen, special, even powerful. The child will start to believe that they are the ones in control when in reality they are being psychologically shaped to serve the adult's emotional or sexual needs. And we do see this, I think, in the Notes app entries that Christina Formella made. I'm going to talk about that in a second. And when the minor victim feels uncomfortable or tries to pull away, the adult groomer uses guilt and shame, such as Christina did in her Notes app, right? So she was mad that she let a teenager mess with her in this way because she had made a promise to never let a man do that to her again. Even in this way, Christina is putting this teenage kid into a league of his own. No grown man would be able to do this to me, but I let you do it. You slipped past my defenses. You're different. You're special. You're above all others. She even says that she would have changed anything about herself just to simply be with him. Which is odd, but once again, it's putting this teenager into a place, a category where it's like nobody else has ever made me compromise myself. Nobody else would ever make me change a thing about myself, but I want to be whoever you want me to be. Like, you are special. You're in control, right? You're the one in control. You've hurt me. You have ruined me for all others. You've ruined me for myself. I let a 16-year-old F with me like this. You're the one in control. Every time I tried to break it off, you made me stay. You gaslit me. You were the one in control the whole time, right? That's what Christina's saying to this teenager. Now, I want to pull a few other examples of how out of her mind Christina was and is. In her long, angry note, she wrote that the 15-year-old had cheated on her with another girl, which is bananas because Christina herself was engaged and then married during her interactions with the student. She also says that she had told the teen countless times that they should break up until after her wedding and after he graduated, which is beyond bananas. It's a banana split sundae with extra nuts. This is insane. She wanted to break up so that she could get married and he could be out of high school and then they would resume their affair. What is she talking about? She also accuses the teen of gaslighting her. He told her everything would be fine. The teenage boy gaslit the adult woman, his teacher, and an authority figure in his life. Okay? Like, come on, man. Come on, Christina. I can't with you. This is, once again, manipulation at its finest. She is very, very good at this, and I would not be surprised if Christina Formella has been involved in a limerent relationship before, and if she may be known for being sort of manipulative and kind of bratty, like always getting her way and kind of, Casey Anthony. Like, Christina Formella might share a lot of personality and character traits with Casey Anthony. But Christina also says, she's not even mad about the fact that she made the choice to not end things and that she kind of let him keep pulling her back. She's not even mad about that. She's mad because she feels rejected as if she was made the second choice by a 15-year-old kid who probably started dating somebody who was of his own age. She's like, I'm not going to be a second choice, certainly not to somebody who's not as good as me, a teenage girl. She also turns the tables on him, accusing him of using her for sex and stringing her along. And she claimed the last time he did this, it broke her. So the last time it broke her. And now, she's not broken anymore. She's just completely lost her old self. She's putting the responsibility for her emotional state directly on the shoulders of an actual child. She actually even says she lost the person she was because of him. Like I said, emotional abuse and manipulation at its finest because she's the adult, he's the child. Now, according to the police, Christina seems to have acknowledged the relationship, at least the emotional aspect of it, even though she denies anything sexual happening. She said, she knew that getting this close to her student was wrong, but she just cared so much about him and, kind of got into this cycle and she couldn't get out. But she, remember, maintains nothing sexual happened, even though she's literally using his name in the Notes app and talking about how he was just using her for sex and saying, I can't believe that I let a 16-year-old F with me like this, because by the time she wrote it, he had turned from 15 to 16. This is insane to me. Like, what defense is she going to use at this point? Now, Christina apparently says the writings in her Notes app were just an outlet for anxiety. And she says that any mention of sex found in her notes or messages were in reference to her husband and not this teenage student. Okay, Christina. Obviously, in the note that she wrote in her Notes app, she literally says, I'm so mad I let a 16-year-old F with me and you just used me for sex. That's all you wanted. So what are you talking about? I don't know. I don't know how she's gonna really pull this one off. Now, Christina Formella did go to court for a short appearance to put in her, plea. She showed up to court hand in hand with her husband, Mike, who I guess is supporting her. Mike, blink twice if you need help, okay? Apparently Mike is supporting her. And she's got a full face of makeup on. She's got like a tailored suit, she's got this superior attitude. She's like the dollar store version of Karen Reed. And she pleaded not guilty to the charges against her, which are 1 count of criminal sexual assault of a minor and 2 counts of aggravated criminal sexual abuse of a minor. And if convicted, Christina could serve anywhere between 4 and 15 years in prison. And once again, she hasn't been to trial yet. She's got to tell her story, but just based on what we know, based on what has been revealed, and knowing how much more has not been revealed, I don't know how she's going to attempt to prove that there was not a sexual relationship here. I don't know how that's going to happen. And obviously, this student is most likely going to be expected to testify and tell his story. Electronic evidence, text messages, emails, things like that, that's going to be introduced. And I don't know how she's going to get out of this. There's literally people out there that are like, oh, the story makes sense that he was, doing this with her phone and that he said, that story does not make sense. What are you who are you people? I mean, I know we don't know all the information yet, but what's your gut say, right? Because my gut says, based on what we've seen, that story doesn't make any sense at all. It doesn't make any sense at all. And once again, I don't want to make this like a very controversial video, but I think that if this was a 15-year-old girl and a 30-year-old man, and anybody was like, oh yeah, that story about the 15-year-old girl setting the man up makes complete sense, it would be an outrage. Nobody would dare say it. And this is another way in which men can be villainized sometimes right off the bat before anybody even knows the full story. Because if the roles were switched and this was a 15-year-old girl, there would certainly not be as many people out there saying like, oh yeah, that makes sense. He set his teacher up. His teacher's young and attractive, and of course he would want that. And this is a really slippery slope and a troubling double standard that I would very much like to see come to an end. Can we treat children as children, whether they're male children or female children? Can we allow them to have their innocence in their childhood and not blame them when that's taken from them, whether they're male or female children? Can we please protect the vulnerable populations who need us to protect them, like children? Can we do that, please? No matter what they look like or can we do that? It's really driving me crazy to see that there is a pretty good amount of people that are out there defending Christina Formella and saying that she was set up and sort of lured into this. Women are not children. Grown women are not children, and they don't need to be protected from actual children. This is out of control now. So that's all I have for you now. I will give you updates. If we hear more, and I'm sure we will, I will give you updates on this one. And once it goes to trial and we get some sort of answers, I will talk about that as well. But I am really, really excited to know what you think about this in the comments. I'm really kind of wanting to see what the discourse is going to be like in the comment section. So let me know what you think in the comments below. Don't forget to like the video if you liked it, share it if you think it's worth sharing, subscribe if you haven't already. And until next time, stay kind, stay beautiful, and stay safe. And I'll see you very, very soon.